And we're back with another Parts Avatar podcast, so the Parts and Pistons Podcast. And today we have a very special guest, all the way from Chicago. So I'll let EJ give himself a little bit of an introduction here.
Yes. Thank you, Alex, for the opportunity to actually be here from the United States directly to Toronto, Canada. So, EJ, RWB, how did this all happen, right?
That's basically the story. That's what
Yes.
we want to know. So if people don't know who EJ is one of the, I'd say, the big shots from Chicago, especially in the RWB Chicago scene. He's quite well known just down across the border.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I'm a big shot. I would say I'm a big ambassador, someone that appreciates the art, especially with Nakai-san's art when it comes to Porsche, when it comes to, the history of his racing in Japan, and just the brand itself. So I would say I'm more of a ambassador of the arts when it comes to street art.
A very humble way to put himself, but it's very true. And by being an ambassador, not only are you part of that community, but you are one of the RWB owners as well, are you not?
So my journey is that I've been appreciative of Nakai's art for many years, more than a decade, let's say. And I've always appreciated what he's done in his craft, and then more importantly, his artistry and his focus, and just what he can build and create. So for me, I've been an admirer for many, many years, and I had the opportunity to actually get even more involved in the RWB world, right? So for me, to be honest with you, Alex, I don't consider myself an RWB owner. I actually consider myself as a caretaker of Nakai-san's art.
That's a very good way to put it, because what he does to many people is art, and some people see it as more than just art, because and this is kind of where it's kind of conflicting, right? Because one of Nakai's big things is he likes to see the cars being driven, right? And I think this will allude into a few other topics here, but he likes to see the cars driven, but a lot of people like you see them as an art piece, right? You want to preserve it, you want to keep it looking pretty and everything, whereas others that do drive them, I think a great example is Al. Al had Nakai drive his car, and it got a few rock chips and stuff like that, and he doesn't want to get it restored because Nakai got those rock chips on his car, right?
Yes. So let's stitch that story together. So what Alex is referring to is I've actually been given the honor and privilege of taking care of one of Nakai's personal USA cars. Right? So an opportunity came up where I have the privilege of serving as RWB Nohra's caretaker. Right? So Nakai built two personal USA cars. One of them is Nohra, and the other one is Carolina. So with me taking on that responsibility of taking care of Nohra, it needs to ensure that it's preserved the way Nakai built it for himself in Los Angeles in 2016. So for me, again, everything that you said is taking care of Nakai's own art.
Yes.
And part of that is preserving the patina.
Yes.
Right? So when I look at Nohra and I look at the stories Nakai has built with Nohra and many of the cars that he's done worldwide, it's all about the stories. It's about the journey of him building it, all the people that came together as a result of that experience, the owners' stories, the supporters, and just the community in general. That's a catalyst to a life-changing event, right? So anybody that's talked about the RWB or inspired by one day I'd like to own anything related to RWB merchandise, let alone be able to attend the build or see one in person or whatever that might be, but just that touch in life where they got a chance to experience the RWB, whether it's visual, in person, meeting an owner, meeting the community, meeting individuals that have been part of a build, whatever that might be. I feel that with Nohra, I have taken on that responsibility to continue to serve as an ambassador and to really take an invested position in spreading, in what we refer to in the RWB family, is spread the RWB love, right?
Yes.
So each of us that partakes in any ounce of involvement takes on that responsibility, right? So when I used that word earlier as far as being an ambassador, it's a very important role, and the responsibility that you have is to understand Nakai's art, to be invested in his vision,
Yes.
and his core to what he does, and be an advocate to that, so that wherever you end up going, whether it's globally, your regional community, you can spread that same RWB love to somebody there and perhaps inspire them or give them themselves a part of that story.
Yeah.
Right? And that's my responsibility with Nohra. So when Nohra comes up, I always refer to my role and responsibility as Nohra's caretaker.
That's a very good way to put it. So, other than like Nohra obviously being Nakai's kind of personal car in the United States, does he drive it a lot? That's the real question.
I mean, from the stories that I've learned, and these are stories from Nakai directly, right?
Yeah.
So, if you ever look up Nohra and look at her stories, and this is not just Nohra, but any other RWB that's out there, they have wonderful adventures, each and every one of them.
Yes.
Right? And Nakai's core has always been, these cars are meant to be driven.
Yes.
Right? And you look at each one is rough.
It is.
Rough with RWB love, right?
Yeah.
And what you talked about earlier and what we talked about together is when you preserve the patina, each little piece of that patina that grew over the journey of that car represents a story.
It does.
Right?
It does.
So when I got the opportunity to bring Nohra from California to Chicago, where she resides now, I had countless vendors that came up and said, would you like us to do anything? Would you like us to restore the paint? You want us to put PPF? You want us to put a wrap or whatever that might be? I had, to be honest with you, politely declined, because every little rock chip, whether it's Nakai or anybody else that was that got the opportunity to drive Nohra, is all part of the story.
It is.
And I did not want to take that position of covering it up, right? And for me, you have to preserve the overall story. I mean, Nohra's coming up into 10 years now, right?
It's
2016
crazy.
is 2024. So that's 8 years already. And she has preserved all the adventures.
Yeah. And like you said, the adventures are what create that unique story with the car, because without them, it's just an art piece. But the way you put it is like it's an artwork. It's more than just an art piece you look at. It's something you should enjoy, something you should, create those memories in, create those adventures in, all those things, right? And technically with any art piece, like you look at like the Mona Lisa or any Da Vinci's paintings, a lot of the cool history of those paintings is like they go missing for years, they go this, they go that, how they end up here, how they end up that. And I guess that's the kind of the same story with these RWBs, right? It's like they go from either owner to owner, place to place, adventure to adventure, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it is, how do you pass on the story and experience to somebody else, right? So I think, if anything, you want to be a person that's always positioned to pay forward.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, again, part of my excitement is Nohra is the first resident RWB in Chicago. So if you think about the car community, you think about the car culture, for RWB specific, for Nakai's art to be represented in Chicago, it's the first.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's a good
I've
point.
taken on that responsibility, and I've told Nakai directly, I said, Nakai, Nohra will be everywhere in Chicago. I will get an opportunity to take her to as many shows, events, whether it's charity or whatever it might be, get it on the road so that she can spread her story. And then more importantly, your art, Nakai's art, can be shared among the region, right? So Chicago. So what was exciting was I took on everything that Nakai wanted in any of his RWBs, right? And be an evangelist in many ways, just be an ambassador of the brand and get it out there. And I can't tell you enough, Alex. And like when you think about your first experience or anybody else's first experience with an RWB, they'll remember that day.
Oh, 100%.
Right? They'll
100%.
remember the weather. They'll remember the music that was playing. They'll remember the people that are around them. They'll remember everything about that first day when they saw an RWB, and they'll never forget it. And I remember that. So I take a very important role that when I go to a car show and people want to talk about Nakai's art, that I can advocate the story and then more importantly give them a chance to create their first encounter. And when Nohra first came to Chicago, that's exactly what happened. Many lives have changed because they saw in person. And like you've seen in your own journey, the comments have always been, this is the first RW I've seen.
Yes.
In person. And it's so much different seeing it in person than you would in digital or print.
Yeah.
And again, Nohra continues to be on the road. You know, she's not a garage queen. And under my care, she's taken on some new patina.
No, well, that's as it should be. That's as it should be because you're just adding to the artwork there, you could say, in a sense. And in the Chicago area, other than Nohra, how many RWBs are there now?
Just Nohra.
Just Nohra?
Yes.
Okay. So let's hope that now that Nohra's there, and she's been there for a little bit, hopefully there'll be another RWB in Chicago. Because like, it's all about spreading and having more than one because, you know, sure, Nohra has been to lots of events, lots of this, but you can't hit up every single event, right? It's almost impossible. Or do you
can't. I mean, you can do as much as you can based on availability. But what's important is to get the story out there. And obviously, like you said, when you look at the community that we have in Chicago, it's inspiring everybody, right?
Yes.
So in each person that's going to get to that next level is going to be inspired by their own timetable.
Yeah.
But just with Nohra being present, Nakai's art being present in the Chicago region, you're just that much closer to inspiring somebody to say, hey, I think I want to get an RWB. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Because without seeing it, people always have this perception of like, oh, you have this car, it's beautiful, you can't enjoy it. And you're showing that, no, you can enjoy it, you should enjoy it, take it places rather than sit in a garage. Because, heck, if you think about a lot of these classic cars, because, you know, you could say that 993s are classics, 930s are classic, 912s are definitely classic cars at this point, 964s are classics. A lot of them are just stored in garages. And they don't get driven. They don't get, they don't see the light of day. A great example is there was that Ferrari Daytona that was sitting in a condo in Toronto for 25 years. So imagine this extremely rare Ferrari, right? Sitting in a parking spot, like covered in dust, like no one knew what was going on. It had to be restored because it sat for so long. And then it gets taken out and it's like, oh, there's a whole craze. But like, imagine if that car was actually appreciated by people. Like, it's already a rare car. Right? There's not that many Ferrari Daytonas out there, and it got enjoyed. So the same thing with RWBs, right? They should be driven. They should be enjoyed so people can see and be like, holy crap, someone's driving their car. Yeah. And you know what? I'm not sure who it was because I was driving home the other day. I think it was the other day or 2 days ago. And an RWB zoomed by the gas station when I was like filling up. And I have no idea whose it was. Because there's only like what 5, 6 in Toronto, and I'm pretty sure that I know where the rest of them were, because I just left left a shop where one was being worked on, and it was Adame Al's. So I'm like, that one can't be it. It can't be Richard's. So there's 2 down already. Who the heck else can it be, right? So in Chicago, when you see an RWB, it's Nohra,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's EJ zooming down the street. Or if you're lucky, you can hope it's not Guy.
Yes, yes, yes. And actually, you brought up a good point, because one of the things I wanted to make sure that I can be an ambassador about, because the question will always come up, what's it like to drive an RWB, right?
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure I had that experience so that I can share that perspective. And like you said, if you don't drive the car, you will not get the you won't get the driving experience. So one of the great opportunities that happened when Nohra first arrived in Chicago was a Porsche event in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Indy Speedway racetrack.
Yeah, that's not too far from you.
Yeah, not too far, about 4 hours away. So there was an opportunity to actually have her display at the Porsche Fest. So she was displayed there, but more importantly, she also had an opportunity to actually get on the track.
Oh my gosh!
Right.
Yeah.
So when you think about RWB specifically, and for all of you that get a chance to look at the background of Nakai's involvement in building modified Porsches, it was specifically for the track, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nakai got it ready, modified it specifically so that he can race the RWB platform on the racetrack in Japan. So what better way to actually kick off Nakai's Nohra with a ceremonial kickoff with an Indy racetrack opportunity. So I got a chance to get to the line. I got there as early as I could be, so I can be the first one.
Yeah.
And I was right behind the lead car.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. So I bet for spectators, they must be like, "Holy crap! It's on the racetrack.
Yeah.
He's actually gonna rip it down the racetrack."
Yeah, and if you look at the Indy racetrack in the bank,
Yes.
I think we had about close to 100 cars, Porsches, that were stacked. But I got purposely to the line early so I can be right behind the lead car, and just that experience of taking her around, and I was right on top of the lead car, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And she, like any other RWB, drove so well.
Yeah.
It's so well. It was so awesome, and I can share that story. What she's like. I mean, she cornered well, naturally aspirated, sounded so good, did very well on the track, and for our air cooled 993 behind a GT3 RS.
Yeah.
She did really, really well.
Well, she definitely had the traction to her advantage, because it's obviously a much more lightweight car compared to that GT3 that was ahead of you, right? But you had that widened stance, you had the right wheels, you had the right setup, and I guarantee that she felt incredible then, eh?
Yeah, and she's had many other opportunities like that to get on rallies. She was on a multi-state rally as well, and so forth. So it goes back to what you said earlier, and both what you and I agree, and many of the owners out there, RW enthusiasts, is, get the art on the road, right?
Yeah.
This is Nakai-san's rolling art. And when you see it rolling, when you see it on the road, you can appreciate it even more because you actually see it moving. You see the angles, you hear the engine, you hear the exhaust, you can feel or at least see the acceleration and so forth. So, this is just one piece of the story, but back to the responsibility of being an ambassador. And I think a lot of it is really about what can you do to create the story, to create the experience, to spread the RWB love. But more importantly, again, like I say over and over again, is you want to be able to pull stories out of it.
Yes.
Right? And the only way you're going to do it is, one, don't be afraid of patina, and when you do get the patina, just preserve it, because it'll represent something, whether it's the Indy racetrack or any other event. And when you look at it, you'll say, this car's been here.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in my mind thinking like I don't know if you've ever played Forza Motorsport, right? And when you're going around the car and the 3D thing, it's like it points to like these special features of the car, and all I'm thinking of like looking at an RWB and this scratch is from Indiana, this scratch is from like drifting the hills in LA, this scratch is this scratch is that, right? All adding on to the overall history and overall nostalgia in a sense of the car, right? You could say nostalgia, right?
Yeah, and what's important again when we look at other adjacent industries, right? Let's tug at it a little bit. When you look at the fashion industry specific to good fine leather, right? And I'm from the United States, so I'll pick one. I'm a big fan of it. So when I look at the Shot NYC motorcycle jacket, right? When you look at that iconic leather moto jacket, right? It comes fresh and it's very stiff. But that jacket in itself gets better over time, right? The more you wear it, the softer it gets. It starts to conforming to the owner. Every scratch, every exposure just adds character.
It does
to the jacket. And anybody that owns a nice fine leather jacket, or specifically with the Shot brand jacket, it just gets better over time. And even the owners, the founders are still part of the family, and they'll tell you that this jacket will last a lifetime. Actually, it'll last multiple generations.
Yeah.
But the key thing to remember, just like the RWB, is that jacket just gets better by being on the road.
Yeah, so just like on RWB, it gets better the more you drive it, the more you enjoy it. And the more, I feel like even the more you drive it and you enjoy it, you want to do more to it. Because the RWB part of it is just the kit, just the widening the stands, the wheels, all that stuff. And then it's like, oh, it drives so good. I want to make it faster. I want to make it this. I want to do this. And then you see people starting to change up the interiors, starting to change up the gauges, starting to change up this, that. At first they're like, oh, maybe I'll just do this. Maybe I'll just do that. And it spirals out as well, in a sense, for some people at least, right?
And you can over accessorize, which is great as well, because it lends individuality or customization to the owner. But I think what I've felt in the RWB family is really the drive to build the stories, right? So let's take another adjacent brand. So if we look at the travel industry, and this is a well-renowned brand because they talk about it all the time. If you look at the Rimowa travel case, right?
Yes,
I mean, their whole position is that the more you get this aluminum case out on the road and it travel, each ding, each scratch, each little piece of character that it creates, essentially it's just showing that this aluminum case has been on the road.
Yeah.
Right? In many cases, you want to preserve it. And in some cases, people will try to manufacture the patina. But the only way to get the true essence of the story is by saying, like you said earlier, this case has been here.
Yeah.
Right? It got banged up when it fell down the stairs or whatever it might be.
Yeah. It got banged up because when it was in Italy, the airport attendant just yeeted it onto the thing or stuff like that.
Yeah. And what's nice with that case, and again, very, very adjacent to the RWBs, is that last year there was a gallery, a Rimowa gallery in Japan, right? So it was an opportunity to showcase many of the cases that were owned by, in some perspectives, celebrities, but you saw a nice exhibit of cases that have actually traveled for decades.
Yeah.
Right? So when I look at the RWB, it's very similar. And every owner, if you ever get a chance to meet one, will be able to tell you the story of their car and what all the patina actually represents.
The same way like with the suitcase. That's a very good way to put it. And, I've had the opportunity to work with Anthony, which hopefully we'll have on a podcast one day. And he has so many stories, like even with the patina, like him and the 930, which is Nakai's personal car here in Canada, right? When they pulled it up to the show and it was like a bunch of dings and scratches and they were all stressing. And then Nakai's like, no, looks good, leave it. right? And just wanted it that way at the show, which I think adds so much to the story that you're telling us today. So, yeah, and I can fully understand, because for me, the first time like I saw an RWB was like 2019. Was at Driven Toronto. And I saw it up close and like saw it pulling in. I actually was like leading the car in and everything. It was a cool experience. But when I had my first opportunity to drive one, and I drove the 996, which some people, will say not a true RWB, blah, 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 blah. It ignited like, maybe I need one of these. Before it's like, oh, this is beautiful. This is so cool. But I don't need one. I don't have a want for one. I'll enjoy it. And then it's like, you drive it and it's like, you know what? Maybe I do need it. So
and that's the beauty of spreading the RWB love, is because you get a chance to pay forward the inspiration to say, build your experiences with this, this car, and then work towards owning one yourself. But regardless whether or not you own one, just collecting the little stories, experiences, it in itself, it's already an investment, right? Because you'll have that little piece. I mean, and let's take something recent. So I had the privileged opportunity to actually be part of Anthony's 997 build in Canada, right?
Yes.
So that was at Richmond. And one of the things that was so awesome to experience was the whole build in itself. But more importantly, after the build, Anthony and I were already planning for the Laguna Seca Porsche event, right, in California. And with commitment, Anthony said, I'm going to drive the 997 to California from Vancouver. So when you look at that as an RWB owner, and we all share the same principle, is we want those cars on the road, right? We want the experience. We want to share the story. And when you look at, let's just take Anthony as an example, fresh coming out of the Richmond build, right? 997, and the first event that pops up as an opportunity, maybe serendipitous in many ways, is a road trip from Vancouver to Laguna Seca. I mean, that trip in itself. And then when I connected with him, and he co-piloted with a good friend, RWB owner himself, just the story, their smile, and how happy they were, and like, oh my gosh, this car drove so well, right?
Yeah.
So he built the story like right away.
Yes.
Right, and that's our commitment. Whether you're an owner, caretaker, a supporter, or just an enthusiast, is you want to help build a story collectively, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's a media team or anybody else, or a fan that has a lot of merch or memorabilia, collectors, you just want to, collaboratively share in the experience, the story. And I think that's the important part, is that you, in many ways, can't create that story if it's a car sitting in the garage.
No.
Right? So, again, big responsibility serving as Nohra's caretaker, but at the same time, like Nakai will want from all his owners, is you need to spread the love.
Yeah.
And one of the things he told me when we were in Vancouver over dinner is, you give love, love come back.
Yeah.
Right? And
give and receive.
That's very important. You inspire somebody to appreciate Nakai's art even further than what they would see online, just through conversation like we're having now.
Yeah.
You're taking that experience one step forward, right, to another level that you will never be able to see or read in text, but to actually experience it through storytelling.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the I guess you could say the slogan or the saying with RWB is rough world, one love, right? Yeah. And if there wasn't a little bit of rough, then it wouldn't go with kind of that slogan anymore, right? It would be just, where's the rough? Where's the rough part of the world, right? The roughness is that patina. The love is spreading the story, and it just kind of, it goes together, and as it should, right?
Yes.
And I think we've kind of embraced that and shown that in today's story and today's podcast, basically, as it all intertwines. It needs to be rough. It does not need to be perfect. Even Nakai, like when he does it bit by bit, he does it everything by hand. And if it's off, people like it being a little off because it's a little different. It's a little this, a little that, right? And it all adds to that one love, because no one's going to be chasing perfection. saying that, oh, Nakai did it like this for you, like this. No, everyone's happy that theirs is a little bit different, a little bit unique. And yeah, I think you can agree with that.
Yes, you make it your own. You create your own stories, and the journey itself will lend to many adventures. Right. My philosophy has always been, for every smile, there's lots of miles. Right. So
Yes.
drive the car, put the miles on, because it'll always generate smiles.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much, EJ. I think for our storytelling today, we'll end it off. The world of RWB is the way I like to see it. It seems like a small niche community, but it's so big because it's worldwide. And EJ coming in from Chicago has had a lot of involvement with the Canadian RWB community and scene. So hopefully I'll be able to use EJ's podcast to lure our other RWB owners in to tell their story as it differs. So I think you're a wonderful start to our RWB story. Very humble and very intelligent, I would say, is your storytelling today. So thank you so much, EJ.
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
It was a pleasure that while you were in good old YYZ Toronto, I was able to steal you away as we'll continue going to more RWB events. And actually, that's where we're off to today. We're off to do some more RWB stuff, and we'll see you in the next podcast. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week's podcast, and that's all.
That's it. Thank you.
Remember, Parts Avatar has got your back, so don't forget to subscribe to the Parts Avatar channel so you don't miss any of these exciting videos.